Imagine for a moment you're an entrepreneur. You've got this amazing idea, right? Or maybe you're running a big company looking to expand. You've got the vision, the capital, but then
Right.
that huge question, where do you actually build this thing? And okay, once you pick a spot, how do you make sure the space inside works perfectly, maximizes everything? It's, way more than just finding some land. It's this really complex strategic puzzle. Get it wrong and well. Today, in this deep dive, we're going to try and cut through some of that complexity. We're dissecting two absolutely critical concepts: plant location and plant layout.
Exactly. And our mission for you today is really to unpack those intricate, often kind of invisible decisions,
Mhm.
the ones that shape not just where industries decide to, set up shop globally, but also how they meticulously optimize their internal spaces, thinking about everything from material flow to, crucially, the well-being of the people working there. And our insights today, they're drawn straight from a pretty comprehensive document on operations management, so we've got a solid base for this exploration.
Okay, great. So to sort of lay the groundwork, what exactly are we talking about when we say plant location and plant layout in this, industrial operations context?
Right. Think of it like this. Plant location, that's the big picture, the macro level strategic choice. It's about picking the right region first
Hmm.
and then narrowing it down to a very specific site within that region for your factory or your business. Plant layout, on the other hand, that's the micro level stuff, the internal choreography, if you will. It's the detailed plan for arranging everything inside that site, your people, the equipment, storage, how materials physically move, all those support services. The main goal, as operations expert Riggs put it, is really to design a physical setup that most economically meets the required output. And that means both quantity and quality, basically getting the most bang for your buck from every single square foot.
Okay, so the big picture, the outside view, and then the really intricate details inside. That makes perfect sense. Now, thinking about that first big step, deciding where to even start building, what are the primary factors, the sort of non-negotiables that really pull a business towards a specific place?
Well, the source material points to several absolute essentials. First up, raw material supply. I mean, this is just foundational, isn't it? You need a consistent, reliable flow of materials. Any hiccup here, any serious interruption, and you're looking at downtime, wasted resources, profits taking a nosedive. So minimizing the time and, crucially, the cost to get those materials delivered is just paramount. Then there's nearness to market, being close to your customers. It's not just about cutting delivery times or transport costs, though that's huge. It also gives you a much faster feedback loop. You understand what your customers actually need much quicker.
Right, you can adapt faster.
Exactly. Imagine trying to innovate when you're thousands of miles away from your main buyers. It's tough. And of course, transportation facility links into both of these. You need good options, cheap, speedy, diverse options, roads, rail, air, maybe even waterways. Your whole supply chain kind of hinges on this working smoothly. Labor supply, another really critical piece. It's not just finding enough bodies, it's finding people with the right skills. And ideally, yes, at a competitive cost. A shortage of skilled labor can just cripple efficiency like almost nothing else. Equally vital is power supply, whether it's electricity, diesel, whatever energy source you need. A reliable, sufficient supply is absolutely non-negotiable for keeping production lines running.
That's probably why you see those industrial clusters, right? The infrastructure's already there.
Precisely. Industrial zones often have robust power grids already in place. And finally, the supply of capital. I mean, every operation needs ongoing cash flow, right? For daily operations, expansion plans, marketing, especially for bigger ventures, securing that significant investment. That's often hurdle number one, even before you seriously think about location.
Wow. Okay. That's a really powerful list of like foundational pillars. But surely it's not just those absolute must-haves. What are some of the other factors? Maybe things that seem secondary but can surprisingly, tip the scales when choosing.
Yeah, absolutely. Beyond those primary drivers, the document talks about secondary factors. These include things like natural factors, the actual suitability of the land itself, access to water, even the local climate can play a role. And increasingly important these days, government policy. This covers local rules, regulations, sure, but also potential incentives. Think subsidies or special facilities set up for certain industries, like small-scale ones. The whole policy environment can be a massive differentiator.
A helping hand or a hurdle, basically?
Exactly. Then there's the availability of supporting infrastructure. Things like housing for your employees, especially if they're relocating. And even stuff like hospitality, entertainment, schools. These things matter for attracting and keeping a good workforce. And then you get into what the source often calls miscellaneous factors. Still important, though. Things like ensuring you have an adequate water supply, separate from just raw materials, considering potential geopolitical instability, which, yeah, the document phrases as danger of attack during war, but today we think more broadly maybe supply chain resilience against, global disruptions.
Yeah, modern interpretation.
Right. It also includes the environmental and ecological impact, a much bigger deal now than it used to be. And critically, the availability of basic safety facilities, firefighting services, police presence. These might seem like minor details up front, but they can seriously impact your long-term operational costs and, frankly, your risks.
It's truly fascinating just how many layers there are to simply picking a spot on a map. It's not simple at all. And what's even more intriguing is that someone actually tried to formalize this, create a theory around it. Tell us about Alfred Weber's least cost theory. How did he try to put a systematic framework around these really complex decisions?
Yeah, Alfred Weber, he was a German economist, and he introduced this famous theory way back in 1909. It's sometimes called the pure theory, or as you said, the least cost theory. He used what's known as a deductive approach. So basically, he started with some big general ideas about what influences where industries locate, and then worked downwards to see how those forces would specifically pull a factory to a certain spot. He was trying to pin down the universal factors, you see. Now, to make this analysis possible, his theory made some pretty significant assumptions. Key ones, really. He imagined a perfectly uniform area, think a flat, featureless plain where everything's the same. Terrain, climate, resources, population, all identical everywhere. An isotropic area, technically.
A bit theoretical, then.
Oh, very. But necessary for the model. He also assumed a single product going to a single market. Raw materials were found only at a few known spots. Markets were fixed, and critically, transportation costs were assumed to be equal per mile, no matter where you were. These simplifications let him isolate the core economic forces he wanted to study.
Okay, so given that idealized level playing field, what kinds of factors did Weber actually focus on as influencing location?
Weber grouped these influences into two main categories. First, regional factors. He saw these as the main drivers determining the general geographic area where an industry might end up. And for him, these were primarily transportation costs and labor costs. Those were the big ones.
Makes sense for manufacturing back then.
Absolutely. Then he introduced what he called agglomerative and deglomerative factors. Agglomerative factors are things that, well, encourage industries to cluster together. Agglomerate. Think shared benefits like easier access to specialized banking or insurance services, or what economists call external economies. Basically, advantages you get just by being near similar businesses, like a big pool of skilled workers or specialized suppliers popping up nearby. Conversely, deglomerative factors are the things that push industries to spread out, decentralize. Things like rising local taxes in a crowded area, the increasing cost of land, maybe higher housing costs driving up labor demands, that kind of thing. You have to remember, his theory was first developed thinking about heavy manufacturing in 19th century Germany. Transportation costs were absolutely dominant then.
Right, so that leads to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? Is a theory from 1909 focused on German heavy industry still relevant today in our totally globalized, hyper-connected world, or is it just, a historical footnote?
It's a great question. And maybe surprisingly, the core logic of Weber's theory. It actually still holds water in many ways. You still see industries locating near raw materials when those materials are heavy or bulky, think sugar refineries near beet fields, or iron and steel plants near ore and coal sources.
True.
And the search for lower labor costs. That absolutely still drives location decisions. Look at companies setting up factories in places like Vietnam or Bangladesh. That's Weber's labor cost factor in action. So, the fundamental logic, it endures. However, the world's changed massively, hasn't it? Technology, the transport revolution, globalization, they've dramatically altered the whole industrial landscape. We have entirely new products, completely different production processes, instant communication. And maybe most critically, we've shifted towards a knowledge-based economy. That puts a much, much heavier emphasis now on things like human capital, skills, training, R&D. Plus, think about how much companies spend today on advertising, branding. These were barely on Weber's radar, but are absolutely crucial now.
So the framework's still useful, but the weights of the different factors have shifted dramatically.
Exactly. The basic forces are there, but their relative importance has really changed.
That's a fantastic bridge from the kind of theoretical pull factors to the really practical side. We've talked strategy, but let's get down to brass tacks. How do pure cost factors influence these location decisions? What actually goes into the financial calculation when you're comparing places?
Right. When we talk about cost location factors, or sometimes area cost factors, they're essentially multipliers. Tools. They help businesses translate the total estimated construction cost of a project from a baseline location to various other potential geographic spots. It gives you a clearer financial comparison, apples to apples, hopefully. And these factors, they break down into several key cost components that all add up. First, obviously, labor costs. And that's not just the hourly wage. It includes benefits, employer taxes or contributions, and even differences in local productivity levels. A cheaper wage isn't always cheaper overall if productivity is low. Then, material cost. This covers everything from, say, steel prices to whether you need to import specialized components, local equipment availability, and significantly, all the freight costs, taxes, duties on materials, whether they're imported or sourced domestically. Next up, logistic costs. This is all about the infrastructure quality, isn't it? Ports, roads, airports, rail networks, even communication tech, warehouse facilities, how smoothly border clearance works, and also any local incentives that might reduce these specific costs. And finally, something broader, the business environment itself. This factors in things like, how easy is it to deal with bureaucracy? Are there strong legal protections for investors? How effectively can you enforce contracts? Can you easily get credit? These all have implicit costs. All these different components are then typically weighted based on how important they are for that specific project, and then calculated comparatively to give you that overall cost picture for each potential site.
Wow, okay, so the financial side is incredibly complex. It's everything from local wages right through to the legal system. But let's assume, okay, the numbers add up for a particular spot, you've chosen your location. What then? The next huge piece of the puzzle is designing the internal dance, isn't it? The choreography of the whole operation inside the walls. What are the guiding principles for getting that plant layout right, for making it truly optimized?
You've absolutely hit on the next crucial stage there. Once you've picked the location, that internal layout is critical for efficiency, for safety, for everything. The document we looked at outlines several key principles. The first one is overall integration. Basically, a great layout harmonizes everything your people, the materials, the machines, all the supporting activities. It's about finding the best possible compromise. Because, no single layout can perfectly nail every single principle. It's a balancing act. Then, a really big one, minimum movement. The goal here is pretty simple. Arrange your facilities to minimize any unnecessary travel. For materials, for personnel, for equipment, ideally you want things flowing in a straight line, shortest distance between points, right? Or at least a clear sequential flow through the different operations.
Makes sense. Less wasted time and energy.
Exactly. Which leads right into the third principle, unidirection flow. Material should always be moving forward towards completion. You want to prevent any wasteful backtracking. Even if you can't manage a perfectly straight line, maybe space constraints mean you need a U-shape or a circular path or even zigzags, that's okay, as long as the material consistently advances. No going backwards. Fourth principle, effective use of available space. This means using all the space you have, both horizontally and vertically. Think about avoiding duplicated movements, sure, but also encouraging vertical stacking, using pallets, shelving systems for raw materials, work in progress, finished goods. Utilize that vertical cube. Fifth is maximum visibility. A good layout means you can easily see what's happening. Men, machines, materials should be observable. Departments should be integrated in a way that makes supervision easier. You generally want to avoid unnecessary walls or partitions that block lines of sight. And finally, maximum accessibility. This is key for maintenance and safety. All servicing points on machines need to be easy to get to. Machines need enough clearance around them from walls, from each other, for things like lubrication, adjustments, repairs. And critical areas like electrical panels or fire extinguishers absolutely must be kept clear. No obstructions.
Okay, it's clear that flow, efficiency, visibility, those are paramount for the physical layout itself. But as you mentioned earlier, it's not just about the machines and the materials moving around. It's also crucially about the people, the environment they work in. What essential facilities are needed to really support that human element within these industrial spaces?
Absolutely. And this is something that good operations management really emphasizes now. Employee well-being isn't just a nice to have, it's fundamental. The source material actually details a pretty wide range of essential facilities, showing a quite holistic approach to the workforce. It includes things like providing educational facilities, maybe for workers or their family schools, reading rooms, libraries, depending on the scale and location. Medical facilities are obviously crucial. Well-equipped first aid stations, maybe an ambulance room, dispensaries on site. Many organizations also invest in recreational facilities, things to support physical and mental well-being. Could be sports, music, cultural activities, hobby clubs. For projects in remote areas or very large campuses, some companies even provide housing facilities, often self-contained units with utilities laid on. And within the factory itself, basic washing facilities are a must. Adequate, suitable, kept clean, and importantly, separate and screened provisions for male and female workers. Accessible too. Even simple things like providing facilities for sitting for workers whose jobs normally involve standing all day gives them a chance for necessary rest. The chief inspector, according to the Factories Act mentioned in some contexts, could even mandate seating if the work can be done sitting down.
Interesting. Little things making a big difference.
Yeah. And canteen facilities, of course, are very common, along with dedicated shelters, restrooms, and lunchrooms. These need to be properly equipped, good lighting, ventilation, kept cool and clean, with access to safe drinking water. And, importantly, rules about not eating in the actual workrooms. And for workplaces that employ a significant number of women, the threshold mentioned is often over 30, providing creches or childcare facilities is sometimes required. These need adequate space, light, ventilation, cleanliness, and crucially trained staff to care for the children. It really paints a picture of creating a supportive, encompassing environment for the workforce.
That's a huge list, really focusing on the human-centric needs. What about the building itself, though, the structure, and keeping it up over the long term? It kind of feels like once it's built, a set it and forget it kind of thing. But reading between the lines, that's really not the case, is it?
Oh, far from it. You're absolutely right. That physical structure, even though it looks solid, needs significant ongoing attention. Maintenance is huge. The document points out things like external elements, especially urban air pollution, can actually cause pretty rapid deterioration to building surfaces, pitting, erosion. Cleaning helps, of course, but you have to be careful not to cause more damage while cleaning. It's tricky. Then there's the constant need for protective materials, coatings, sealants to slow down corrosion, repel moisture, keep the structure sound, and roofing. The document calls it an unavoidable and continual problem.
Huh. Sounds about right.
Yeah. Whether it's just fixing minor leaks or undertaking major re-roofing projects, it's a constant battle against weather and time. And interestingly, in larger industrial complexes that might include accommodation, maybe guest rooms for visitors, or even longer-term housing, the maintenance of those spaces, the furnishings, the fixtures, that becomes a surprisingly significant capital expenditure over time. These high-visibility, high-traffic elements often need replacing within their first decade. So it's a continuous cycle of investment just to maintain the physical environment.
Okay, so the building needs constant care. And critically, beyond just providing the basic facilities you mentioned, how do we ensure actual health and comfort within these spaces? It seems like such a core element for a successful operation, but maybe one that sometimes gets overlooked until there's a problem.
It's absolutely foundational. It ties into several things. Sanitation, for instance, is paramount. It's focused on the safe disposal of human waste, sewage. The goal is straightforward: preserve health, prevent disease transmission, especially things spread via the fecal-oral route. Keep the environment clean. It's maybe easier in low-density areas, but absolutely crucial in densely populated workplaces. There are various systems for this, from basic latrines to sophisticated managed systems. Then there's air conditioning and safety. Providing good ventilation in the workplace, as we all learned more about recently, is a key factor in reducing the spread of viruses, right alongside good hygiene. Proper ventilation and air conditioning can prevent the spread of bugs that tend to thrive in warm, damp conditions. And here's where it really connects directly to the bottom line. There's a very well-established link between employee well-being and their productivity. It's simple, really. Comfortable staff can concentrate better.
Less distraction.
Exactly. Now, while there might not always be a strict legal requirement forcing air conditioning in, say, an office setting in every jurisdiction, employers generally do have obligations around ensuring thermal comfort. That basic feeling of not being too hot, not too cold. It's a health and safety consideration.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting for me. Beyond just ticking those legal boxes or meeting basic obligations, why is proper air conditioning, proper environmental control actually so important? Why does it shift from being just an amenity to potentially a strategic business advantage?
Yeah, it's multifaceted, but really powerful when you break it down. First, thinking about employee health and well-being. Good air conditioning actively prevents the spread of common bugs, yes, but it can also alleviate physical discomfort, like joint pain or arthritis symptoms, which are often worsened by temperature extremes or dampness. It also directly combats health risks, like mold growth. So, healthier employees, fewer sick days. That's a direct benefit. Second, and this is huge, Increased productivity. It's hard to overstate this. Employees who are physically uncomfortable, shivering cold, or sweating hot, they simply cannot concentrate as well. Their focus drifts.
Makes sense. Your body's just trying to cope.
Precisely. They're more likely to make errors. They might take longer, more frequent breaks just to get comfortable. So comfort directly impacts focus, accuracy, and overall output. And third, something maybe a bit softer, but incredibly important, improved morale. This is huge. A comfortable workplace is simply a happier workplace. By investing in creating a positive, pleasant physical environment, you're sending a clear message to your employees. We value you. Your comfort matters. That isn't just a small detail. It can significantly positively impact your entire company culture. Better morale often means better teamwork, higher engagement, lower turnover. It's a real strategic lever.
Wow, what a journey we've really taken here. Starting from that massive macro-level strategic choice, where in the world do we even put this thing? Then drilling down into the meticulous micro-level internal layout, how does everything flow inside? And finally landing on the absolutely crucial human-centric facilities and environmental controls that really define the daily experience, the health, the well-being of everyone working within those walls. It's truly a complex, deeply interconnected ecosystem, isn't it?
It really is. And hopefully, understanding these principles gives you, the listener, a much deeper insight into those often invisible forces. The forces that shape our physical environment, our workplaces, and ultimately impact the efficiency, the profitability, and yes, the human experience within countless industries all around us.
Which, thinking about it, raises a really important final question for you to consider. If these principles, low patient strategy, internal layout, environmental control, human factors, if they're so demonstrably vital for physical factories and workplaces, how do they translate? Or maybe, how do they challenge our thinking about the design and the layout of our increasingly digital workspaces, our virtual teams, the remote work setups, these evolving knowledge factories of our modern economy? What does location and layout even mean there? And are we paying enough attention?